Welcome, welcome. So, listen, I am doing a podcast without my camera on for the first time ever because my
Welcome,
coach
welcome. So
has
listen, I
been getting
am
on me
doing a
about podcasts don't need to have a video. So, I'm working on that, guys. So, bear with me. Listen, today we are talking about investing out of state, and I'm specifically going to talk about the risk of trying to force your city that you live in to be the city that you invest in. Huge mistake that I see so many investors, new and old, make is they try to force their area, their city, their market to be what they want it to be so that they can invest and they end up losing tons of money. So let's go ahead and talk about it. And of course, if you have questions, put it in the chat. All right, so whenever I'm teaching or speaking about investing in real estate, I always tell people to begin with your why. Your why should really benefit your lifestyle, either your current lifestyle or the lifestyle that you aspire to have. Some whys might be, I want more income every single month, right? When I was a school principal, when I first got into real estate investing, my take home pay was only about $3,000 per month. That was $1,500 every 2 weeks after taxes, insurance, and all of that stuff came out. That's all I had. And so it was very important for my family, and I was the main breadwinner. It was very important for my family to be able to make ends meet. So we needed high cash flow coming in every month to supplement our income. So our why was we needed more money, more income coming in every single month. And you also know, as educators, we get slammed in taxes, right? So it didn't hurt that I can get some tax breaks as well, from buying an investment property. But as I've matured in my investing, I've invested for other reasons, right? So some other whys that you might have might be appreciation. Maybe you just want to buy the property and you just want to hold it because you know you're in a high appreciation area. And once the property appreciates, you're going to sell it. So that might mean you're not even getting high rents. Maybe the rent is just enough to cover your mortgage payment and you are just holding on to it because you know in a couple of years you're going to be walking away with a big paycheck. Maybe your why is you need a lump sum of money. So maybe you're doing a quick flip. I mean, but just understand why. What do you need? What do you need right now to support or enhance your current lifestyle? Okay. Once you have your why, you need to choose a strategy, an exit strategy that matches your why. And when we say exit strategy in real estate investing, we just mean like essentially your buying strategy, right? And that could mean like high cash flow, rentals, or, flips or slow flips, or, whatever your strategy is. But your strategy has to match your why. So I'll go back to my example when I was in education and I was only making $3,000 a month and we were barely making ends meet, I needed, wanted, desired more cash flow coming in every month. So the exit strategy that I chose was a high cash flow rental. Here's where I ran into a problem that a lot of you guys out there who are getting into investing or who've already invested, this is a problem that you've probably run into. I lived in a city that did not have a market that supported high cash flow. Okay. I live in Houston. So Houston is well known for its appreciation. Your house is definitely going to appreciate here, especially during those years, 10 years ago when I was first starting to invest. I mean, golly. I mean, looking back, I don't want to go on a tangent, but I remember one house I bought for $175,000. Beautiful, renovated, wonderful, excellent. 6 years later, that house, I didn't do anything to it. The house was probably in worse condition than when I bought it, when I sold it. That house sold for $309,000. Do you hear what I'm saying? So Houston is great for appreciation, but it's not so good for cash flow. And here's what a lot of people out there would do. You are so interested in investing and you're so scared to invest outside of where you feel like you have control that you're going to try to invest in Houston and try to find something and make it cash flow. And I'm telling you now, you can't make a market do anything. If you could make a market do something, we would all be rich because we'd all just make our markets do what we want them to do. right? That's not how it works. So you need to really make sure that the strategy that you choose has to match the market that you choose. So that's step three. Choose a market that matches your strategy, and your strategy should match your why. Everything must align. And I know a lot of people out there, say, well, I don't want to invest outside of where I live because what if something happens to the house? Like, what if a pipe burst? If I'm 20 hours away, what am I going to do? And I always tell people, if something happens to one of your investment properties, and even if you live 10 minutes away and a pipe burst, you're not suddenly going to become the Super Mario Brothers, Mario and Luigi plumbers and know how to fix a pipe. You're going to do the same thing 20 hours away as you do if you were 20 minutes away, which is call a plumber. That's it, especially now in 2020. I mean, 2025. I mean, back when I started, doing virtual investing, Zoom and all that stuff wasn't like a thing yet. We hadn't had COVID yet. But nowadays, my God, I mean, you could do everything virtual. Everybody's working from home. So don't be afraid of that. But what I see is people get really nervous about investing out of state, so they try to force where they currently live to be the market that they want it to be. So here's a great story for you. In Houston, for instance, it's not the best place to cash flow. And so I saw someone, they were like, well, I found a house that is only $130,000. And I looked up the rents. I can get rents that will cover the mortgage payments and I'm going to have high cash flow. And we were having the conversation because I was talking about how I invest in the Midwest. And I was bragging about how I can buy houses for less than $100,000, but still get extremely high rents. And I'm cash flowing like crazy. Like my very first investment property brought in $1,000 a month net cash flow. And that house cost me less than $50,000, just to give you an idea. But anyway, that person, we got to have our pissing contest in real estate investing because that's just what we do. So, his argument was that, well, I also can get houses very expensively in Houston, $130,000, and I also can get high rents for them and get the high cash flow. Here's what this person didn't understand. Houston is a totally different place than the Midwest. Here's some differences just right off the bat. In Houston, we have HOAs, and our HOAs have like judicial rights, right? They can foreclose on you and everything. And our HOAs are known for being very expensive and very nosy. In the Midwest, we don't have HOAs. They're not as common as they are down here in Houston. So that's one fee already that is going to start eating into your cash flow in Houston that I wouldn't even imagine ever having in the Midwest. Another thing, in Houston, we have very high property taxes. Our property taxes are astronomical, right? In the Midwest, it's the opposite. The property taxes are extremely low. I mean, laughably low, right? So that's another expense that's going to come up. You have to pay your taxes every single year. So the taxes that you're paying on your house is again going to be eating into your cash flow, something that would not happen in the Midwest. And then another example is here in Houston, we have high insurance. We have floods and hurricanes and things like that. So our insurance premiums are higher, especially if you're in a flood zone, then you have to get flood insurance. So that's a third additional, cost or expense that's eating into your cash flow that I don't see in the Midwest. So I was trying to explain to this investor, you're not comparing apples to apples. Houston is a market made for appreciation. And it's because of all of those extra fees. So yeah, on the outside looking in, a quick glimpse, it looks like it was about the same. Well, I got a house inexpensive too, and I'm going to get high rents too. Yeah, but you also have very high expenses. And for me and average Americans, we are more concerned about our net cash flow. How much money do I get to put in my pocket every single month to help me pay these bills, to take care of my wife, take care of my husband, take care of my kids, to give them a little something extra, or just to make the, ends meet? I care about my net cash flow. What is going into my pocket? I don't care about sounding like the big man on campus by saying, yeah, I get $1,000 a month for my rental. Yeah, but you only keep 100 of it. Okay. For me and the other average Americans, I need to be able to keep as much of that $1,000 as I can because I need it, you know? So that's what I mean when I say you can't force your market to do what you want to do. In that same scenario, I'm making money hand over fist, because I don't have high taxes, I don't have high insurance, I don't have HOA fees, so it's not apples to apples. So those first three steps were number one, know your why. Why are you investing? What do you want? How do you want this to improve your lifestyle financially, honestly, or time wise? Number two, okay, what strategy is aligned to your why? If you want high cash flow, then your strategy is probably going to be high cash flow rentals. And then third of all, choose your market correctly. Your market has to match what you want. If you want high cash flow, you need to invest in a high cash flow area. But the big mistake, I'm telling you, I always see investors, they're like, well, I don't want to invest remotely. I don't know. And, I don't know anybody there. And I'm thinking like, if you're a new investor here, you don't know anybody here. If you're a teacher, you probably know a bunch of other teachers here. You don't know other investors here because you're not locked in. So just like if you were investing where you live, and if it's important for you to be a big part of the community, the investor community, you do the same thing remotely. You go to the online RIA meetings, you go to the webinars, you go to the online meetups, the online, you build community that way. That's the way I do it anyway. And I do invest in Houston, and I still do most things online. I have a family and kids and another job. I don't have time to be going to catch coffee with Joe Schmo Investor every other day. I'm doing it online, Facebook groups, school communities, just like you would do anywhere else. And I'm getting great cash flow. I have an example of the opposite. And you guys know I'm a real estate coach, so I got stories just left and right of, of problems I've had to solve for clients. I had an opposite issue where I had someone, we were already investing in the Midwest, we were doing great with cash flow. As a coach, I'm telling them, okay, it's time for you to diversify your portfolio. You don't want to have a portfolio full of one thing, right? Because if a shift happens in the market, then it's going to have a huge effect. So I said, okay, it's time for you to start adding some appreciation, to your portfolio. And of course, since I know Houston well, I said, Houston is where you want to do it. You want to do appreciation in Houston. I'm telling you, I don't know what it is about Houston, but my God, our our appreciation, I mean, it's like a torpedo, right? But they didn't want to listen. They got used to the Cleveland market, although they lived out of the country actually. But they got used to the Cleveland market. They got locked in, they felt comfortable having me and my team there and things like that. And they tried to do appreciation in Midwest. It doesn't work. Here's why. Well, here's why theirs didn't work. Number one, the Midwest is made for high cash flow for a reason. A lot of the houses in the Midwest are older houses. We don't have a whole lot of new developments, especially in the city. So a lot of those houses are like 100 years old. They just are. So when you go to do a renovation or a rehab, um, I mean, you're is on an old house. Things are going to come up. It's going to be more expensive to do a rehab on an older home. And if you're doing it for appreciation, that essentially means you can buy the house. You're not really concerned about trying to get high rents. You just want to let that house sit, and build, equity over time. Well, here's what happened. They invested in this, in the same area. They bought the house. But the problem with that area is for the last 10 years, none of the houses in that area have appreciated for over $100,000. I think it was actually $90,000. Like if you looked at the trend for that neighborhood for the last 10 years, and probably if you look farther, it probably would have been longer than that. No house has appraised above $100,000. So when you're going to buy and hold, right? The whole point is you're trying to gain as much equity on that house as you possibly can. You want it to be worth more than what you bought. But this neighborhood is capped. So it's not ever going to go beyond that number. That's problem number one, right? You can force appreciate it as much as you try to. You can try to make it the best bathroom, the best kitchen, and try to force that appreciation. But the appraisal is showing us it's not, no matter what you do to that house, you could turn that house into a mini mansion, is not going to appraise for over 100K because of the area. Okay, that's the first thing. Second issue is some of you guys are probably already knowing this. You're probably already seeing the issue with the numbers I'm presenting. But if you're not seeing it, let me make it clear. Most loans have a minimum of $100,000. So if your goal is to hold that house, build as much appreciation as you can, allow it to appreciate, and then sell it, well, you have to sell it to someone, right? And that someone will likely need to have a loan to do it. But in most cases, there are not a lot of loan products available for less than $100,000. So now you've just limited your buyers. Now you've limited your buyers to people who have cash, or maybe they're getting some kind of investor loan. But even those, especially with things getting tighter, they want to see a minimum loan amount of $100,000 in most cases. Not all, but in most cases. So even if you know, got that house and you did everything, you held on to it, and even let's say you got some equity in there, maybe you bought the house for 60 and now it's worth 90 and you just want to pull your little $30,000 out. If the house doesn't appraise, the lender can't do it. So you're stuck. Why? Because that area is not meant for appreciation. That is a high cash flow market. You have to make sure that the market matches what you want to do in the market. You can't make the market do what you want to do just because that's what you want. It's not how it works. It's not how it works. So, it's a big problem that I'm seeing. And, I'm noticing that it's fear-based and a lot of the fears are irrational. And one of my goals is to really just talk you through that fear logically so you can really see how much sense it doesn't make. You need to be investing out of state or out of your city if you're in a city that doesn't match your strategy. You cannot force it. And then, I'll give one last example before I hop off because you have some people who are going to do this. They're going to say, well, I really want high cash flow, but because I live in a city like Houston, I'm just going to do it for appreciation. You're going to end up broke. Investing for appreciation costs money, okay? Because you're not making a whole lot of cash flow every single month. So if something breaks, if something happens, when you have a tenant turnover, you have to have money to pay for that. Okay. The difference is with high cash flow, especially for the first house I bought with $1,000 net coming in, if something broke, I'm making so much money off the house. I have money for that. A tenant turnover, I have money for that. I can afford those losses because they're not coming from my pockets. They're coming just from my net profits. Okay. But if you're already, let's say if you're, making, I don't want to count anybody's pocket. I'll use myself. When I was only making $3,000 a month as an educator, if I had a property that wasn't even making me any money, right? But I have this long hold, strategy that I'm going to do, and one day I'm going to sell it and pull out the equity out of it. Well, if something happens in the meantime, I have to pay for it. And if I'm already, you know, not where I want to be financially, that really just turns into another burden. So don't force yourself to choose a strategy just because of the market that you're in. You really have to choose the strategy based on your current situation and where you're trying to go financially or in terms of time. So just really consider those things. So 3 easy steps. Know your why. Why are you investing? Okay, you want more money every month. Cool. So then what is going to be your exit strategy? All right, then it should be high cash flow rentals. Okay, and then what market? Well, it can't be Houston, right? You need to pick a market that makes sense, like the Midwest or the Southeast. Those are places that are going to get you the high cash flow that you desire. So I have homework for you guys who are listening. And if you listen this long, I'm going to come back on live tomorrow. So I've been going live every day. I've just been checking on different times to see which time is best. But I'll be going live again tomorrow. And this time I have something that I think is going to help you. I created, oh, I love this. So I created a chat GPT, and this GPT, I trained it just like I train my staff on how to do a quick, just 10-minute down and dirty rental analysis. And so all I'm going to do is have you, it's free, totally free. I'm not charging anything for it. You have it, it's yours forever and ever and ever. But it is going to walk you through the 3 steps I just talked to you about. It's going to have you use 3 free websites so you can check your numbers, check the property. It's going to give you a checklist so you can do this over and over and over for any house in any market at any time. And then you're also going to have a link to my chat GPT where you can literally plug and play any questions that you have. It can break down your return on investment, your cash on cash. It'll break down everything that you need it to. That way, in just 10 minutes or less, you can analyze any house, any property, any market, and to see if it makes sense for what you want to do. Okay, so I'll be coming back on live tomorrow with that free resource for you, and I want you to test me. I really want you to try it out, and then when you see that I'm right, leave a comment. All right, so look, happy investing, everyone. Again, this is my first time going live without video. I'm really trying to practice this whole podcast format because that's just so weird for me not being able to see myself on video when I'm recording. But anyway, I'll see you guys tomorrow live. I went live yesterday at 3. I tried it again today at around 7 to test it out. So tomorrow I'll likely go a little bit earlier to see if that's a better time. So I'll probably be on tomorrow at probably about 1:30. But if you're watching this after it's recorded, I'll just put everything down in the description and you can just click and download your free resource. But I want you to test it out. I want you to try it and I want you to get comfortable with the idea of investing outside of your city, and I want you to use this free resource and this free tool just to help you make sure that you're analyzing it the right way so you don't end up in a situation where you're trying to force a market to do something that is not meant to do. We got a deal? All right, guys, I will see you tomorrow. Until then, take care of yourselves, get some rest, eat good food. I'll talk to you later.